Hi, today I'm going to talk you through the decks that I'm going to be using in April, but first I'm going to do a reflection upon the decks that I used throughout the month of March, and there's already my dog joining us. So if you're new to my channel or you don't really know how I work with my decks so far in 2022, it is that I choose a set number of decks, both Tarot and Oracle, and those are the decks that I'm going to be using for the entire month. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I feel like I'm not getting a good relation sort of out of all of the decks that I have. And I noticed that some of the decks are putting more being put on the back burner. However, now at the end of March, I'm at a point where I feel like I am sort of craving and really missing using some of the decks that I haven't used yet this year or that I used for the last time in January. So I'm gonna sort of make it up to myself in this for the decks for this month. So let's first do the March reflection. So the first deck that I used in March is my Anna K Tarot. And the funny thing is that I didn't really use it much because I was really craving more gentle decks, like the other decks that I have in my little basket here. I have a little basket that I have on my desk where I put all the decks that I'm using for the month. But my Anna K Tarot, I haven't really been using it. Like I said, I was really craving more gentle decks, and my Anna K Tarot really tells it like it is. And you know, oftentimes that is awesome, and that is definitely what I need. But this month was kind of a tough month for me, so I really needed some gentler decks. I didn't know that at the beginning of the month, that I was gonna have a tough month. But then I did use it yesterday for the recording of my podcast. This is pretty pre-filmed, by the way. This is the 47th episode that went up this week that I'm filming it. And yeah, I really enjoyed working with it. I always enjoy working with it. The deck doesn't come etched, by the way. I etched it myself. I got this deck secondhand. I've been really trying to purchase more decks, especially mass market decks secondhand. So yeah, I didn't use it much, but I know that this is a deck that I absolutely love. So this is gonna go back into the huge, it's not really a box, it's sort of a basket that I have of my decks. And this is definitely one that I'm keeping because I'm also going through all of these decks, seeing if it is one, like if I don't grab it for an entire month and afterwards I still feel like I don't want to grab it, maybe it's one that I have to declutter. That's not the case with this one. I love my Anna K. The next deck is my Good Karma Tarot. And this one, I think this is the deck that got the most use this month because it is such an easy deck to work with, because it is gentle. I loved working with this deck for my personal practice, for my personal readings. I also read with this, of course, for pick a card readings. I'll link the pick a card readings that I did this month with these decks in the description box as well as in the cards. But I love this deck. And when I'm looking at it, it makes me so happy. And this was definitely one that I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna, like, I haven't reached for this deck in a while. So I want to pull it out and see how much I reach for it. And I reached for it all the time. And I use this for some client readings as well. So this was a deck that got a lot of use throughout the month of March. And I'm super happy that this sort of rekindled my love for this deck because I love it. So that was the Good Karma Tarot. Okay, the next deck is the Magical Dogs Tarot. And I did reach for this for my personal practice because I say this all the time. When you book a reading with a tarot reader, you don't want them to pull out a dog tarot deck. Let's be honest. But I do love this deck. I love this so much. And anytime that I pull this deck, anytime that I use it, it is so easy to read with. It is so intuitive. I absolutely love this deck. This deck is definitely not going anywhere. because I love it. I love this. This is like the Llewellyn cardstock because it also comes with a big guidebook that I wanted to read, but I didn't. But those are the boxes, the box decks from Llewellyn, and they shuffle so... Ooh, okay, well, I have mobility issues, okay? I have mobility issues. Shuffling is always tough for me, but this is a deck that I enjoy working with. I enjoy shuffling. I enjoy looking at the images. I get so many intuitive hits from this because I love dogs. And this is a dog. I think this is a deck that I talked about in my classics. I actually already don't remember. It wasn't that long ago that I filmed that and edited that. But however, that is the Magical Dogs Tarot deck. Another deck that I wanted to work with in March is the Happy Tarot. And actually I had to get this out of the basket because halfway through the month I put it back. And this is definitely a deck that I love. Like, this is quite new in my collection, so I haven't used it a ton, but I really do enjoy this deck. But it kind of gave me a hard time, gave me some tough messages, which you might not expect from a deck that looks like this, but I feel like it is so happy, like it's called the Happy Tarot. It feels like so overly happy that it's almost sarcastic, and that is what I have found the tone of voice to be with this deck. It's really like almost sarcastic, and that really vibes with me. I really vibe with that. So, but the thing is, I got a really tough reading this month with this deck, and I sort of noticed that I didn't really feel like pulling this deck out after that. So I put it back in the basket, also because I got in a new tarot deck that I'm going to be showing you next. Yeah, I definitely love this deck. Absolutely love the shuffle on this. I really want to edge this like pink or something. Like, I don't think I want to edge it purple. I think I'm going to edge it pink. This is also a deck that I got second hand. I definitely used it in the month of March. I'm definitely going to be keeping it because, like I said, it's quite new to my collection, and I do really vibe with it. The next deck is the Tarot of Trees, and this one came into my collection in the month of March, so I haven't used it a ton yet. I still have to do my deck interview with it, so this is a deck that I'm gonna be using in the month of April as well. I am thinking of edging it because it's like, this is like really white, so I definitely want to edge it. I don't know if I'm gonna edge it like black because that really matches with the front, but it doesn't really match with the backs. I don't know. I like simple edging, like straightforward edging. So Tarot of Trees, there's not much that I can say about it yet. I definitely want to do a deck study with this, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that in April yet because I have another deck that I'm going to be doing a deck study with. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I haven't really used it much yet. I've done a flip through. I am still going to do a deck interview, so I really hope to be able to work with this a little bit more, mostly for personal readings. I got this for personal use more than for my YouTube channel. Definitely not for my client readings because I don't think a lot of clients will vibe with this deck. You know, like I said, if you book a reading with a tarot reader, you don't want them to pull out a deck of trees or of dogs. You want something that is more relatable, like the Good Karma Tarot that I talked about. So that is the Tarot of Trees, and I'm going to be keeping this in the little basket, in my little desk basket to keep working with it. The last tarot deck that I worked with is the Afro Avatar Tarot deck, and I didn't use it much, but I scanned in all of the images. I'm going to be flipping through this a little bit differently because I have it in order, because I'm going to do a deck study with it. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I am just not using this deck enough and I want to use it more. So I want to write down the characters that I see in the cards, the feeling that the cards give me, what part of the story is it about, how does it relate to the meaning of the tarot card, because I think there is so much depth in this deck. I was so close to purchasing a second Avatar deck. Well, I mean, I wasn't going to purchase it because it's not even up for pre-order yet. But the little avatar tarot, that looked so freaking adorable. I almost got it, but then I was like, no, I need to really bond with this deck first, because I think this is my perfect avatar deck. I definitely think that, because the way that the suits are done with the elements, it makes, to me, it makes more sense than what the creator of the little avatar tarot has done. So yeah, again, this is one that I'm going to be carrying into the month of April, if not only for my deck study. So I'm going to be putting this back. Yeah, I love this deck. I love it so much because I love Avatar. I feel so connected to the show. So this is going to go back too. So now let's do a Lenormand. This is one that I haven't really talked about for a couple of videos, but this is always in my little basket because it's the only Lenormand deck that I have. And I didn't really know how to use it, but then I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna use it like linearly. Is that a word? Linearly? Like from the first thing that's gonna happen, the second thing that's gonna happen, the third thing that's gonna happen. And that is how I used it, and I got a bunch of really great insights. And if I wanted to put more time in it, then I could have also pulled like Oracle or Tarot cards for each position. But I found it really intuitive and really fun to read with Lenormand in that way. So I'm definitely gonna keep this in my little desk basket, because I'm still learning the Lenormand, and I don't know if I want to make like a cheat sheet or what I want to do for Lenormand. Speaking of cheat sheets, you can get my tarot card meaning cheat sheets for free to download on my Ko-fi page. That will be linked in the description box. But yeah, the Lenormand, super excited about it. Okay, now I'm going to talk about a deck that I'm not excited about, and it's the Legendary Ladies. And where's my Oracle journal here? The deck study that I did on this will be up. So if you want to completely know everything about my experience doing the deck study with it, definitely watch that video. Long story short, I found it really tough to get intuitive hits from these cards. There were quite a bunch of cards within this deck that I did not vibe with, that I did not like, which is a shame because look at the images. I think the images on this deck are absolutely gorgeous. I definitely want a portrait done in this art style of me because I think it's gorgeous. And some of the keywords make sense to me. Some of the keywords I can definitely work with in an Oracle reading way. But most of these, I feel like this is not an Oracle deck, or at least it's not an Oracle deck that I can work with in the way that I like to work with Oracle. If you work with goddesses, if you work with goddess energy, with deities, then this is probably great for you. You can pull a card and maybe work with that deity or work with the deity goddess energy. But that is not what I do. That is not in part of my practice. So unfortunately, the deck study that I did, and I mean, that's sort of how it's supposed to go, you know? Throughout a deck study, throughout working with these decks in a month, I gotta find out if this is a deck that I want to keep in my collection, and this is definitely not gonna be kept in my collection, which is really tough because, again, I love the artwork, I love the idea of this deck, but it's just, it doesn't have a place in my practice, and that is okay. I hope someone else can enjoy it instead. The last Oracle that I worked with in the month of March is the Queen of the Moon Oracle. And this one is new to my collection as well. I also got this secondhand, and I recently used it in the April predictions. Yeah, that is also up already. Yeah, I used it and I enjoyed it. Not all of them were as easy to read with. I'm definitely gonna keep this in my relation for April too. Also because I don't really have a lot of Oracle decks that I really care for. I'm gonna be decluttering a bunch of Oracle decks, so definitely stay tuned for my March show and tell where I'm gonna talk about the decluttered decks. But yeah, this is definitely one that I want to keep working with, and that I want to do a deck study on to really get the most out of it, because I do think that this is a deck that I'm going to be keeping in my collection, but I just want to learn, want to see how I can work with it even better. Okay, so let's get on with the decks that I'm going to be using in April, and the first one is my White Newman Tarot. This is the tarot deck that I was really just missing working with. I love this deck. I think it's so pretty. I want to use this for personal readings. I want to use this for pick card readings. I want to use it for client readings because I just missed working with it so much. So that is the main reason that it's in this pile for decks for April, because I just really wanted to work with it again. I really just missed it. And I think that that is something that I've also come to learn throughout this relation process, is some decks I don't miss at all, or some decks I sort of forgot even that I had them. And some decks like this one, I feel really, really called to use them. And I think that that says something about this deck. I think it says something about my relationship with the deck and how much I'm drawn to it. So yeah, this is the White Newman Tarot, and that is the first deck that I'm going to be working with in April. Let's see. Ooh, yeah. Okay. So this is one of those decks that I forgot that I had, and I want to get a different bag for this. I'm going to be making a ton of bags, in a little bit, but this is my Housewives Tarot. And this is one that, when I first got it, I was super bonded to it. I was really super excited and pleased to read with it. And then sort of that stopped when I got in more decks. This is a very quirky, funny, sarcastic sort of deck, and I don't know if it still has a place in my collection. And I hate saying that because it's so unique. It is so fun, and I want this to be in my collection. I want me to work with this, but I just don't, and I don't feel drawn to it. This is not a deck that I grab for client readings. I do like this deck for pick-a-card readings, to be honest. I don't really pull this for personal readings either, because I have other decks that I use for that. So this is really going to be a trial for this month with this deck. See if this is a deck that I want to keep in my collection. And I talked about decluttering this before. This has definitely been on the chopping block for a while. It's so cute. It is so fun. But I don't know. So we're going to see if I'm going to keep the Housewives Tarot. Let's see. The next tarot deck is this one. This is the Everyday Witch Tarot deck. And this is also one that I don't really feel drawn to using. This is also a Llewellyn deck, so I will be grabbing the guidebook for this as well. See if I can, want to read this. But when I don't see this deck like right in front of me, I sort of forget that I have it. But then when I have it in my hands, I look at the images and I like it so much. I think there's so much depth to it. And some people say that they don't like that some of the cards are more like medieval or more historic looking, with of course a modern art style. And then some are very modern looking with like doing yoga and all that, like more modern stuff, like the Chariot I think is on a motorcycle. But I really like that because I like it when decks don't take themselves too seriously. That is what I prefer, what I enjoy in my decks. And I'm not saying that I totally get into the world of this tarot deck, because I don't, but there's not really any tarot deck that I have that I am completely drawn into the world of it, because that's just not how I am. That's just not how I work. Oh, look at that. That's so, I like it. So yeah, this is also one that I hope to be working with a lot in the month of April, because I want to know if this is a deck that I'm going to be keeping. Here's the motorcycle. Because this is the deck that I chose in the Say Yes to the Deck with Lisa Paz. And I definitely don't regret picking this up. But I also don't know if it still has a place in my collection. Like, again, when I look through it, it looks awesome and I love it. But when I'm not looking at it, or when I have a bunch of other decks that I could use instead, I tend to go for the other decks. So those are the tarot decks. Those are the 3 new tarot decks. Of course, I still have the Tarot of Trees and the Afro Avatar Tarot that I'm going to be working with in April. But this one will be more for personal use. So yeah. So for Oracle, like I said, Queen of the Moon Oracle. Hope to be doing a deck study with that in the month of April. And then I want to talk about my Sacred Self-Care Oracle. This is a deck that I work with, all of the time, but I never include it in my monthly reading or my monthly deck videos. But I wanted to include it because this is one that always lives in my desk drawer, and now I want to put it in the desk basket as well, because I pull a card from this deck like at least once a week. If not for myself, then for my podcast, for readings, like the April prediction video, I did that. I pull cards from this deck all of the time as well for client readings, but especially when I feel like the reading calls for it, for more self-care. I don't even know if I said the name of the deck, Sacred Self-Care Oracle. This has a bunch of self-care prompts. How I like to use it is I shuffle, I pull 3 cards, and then everybody who watches this or watches the pool picks at least one prompt to do that month or that week or whatever. I do have a couple of cards here in the back that I don't like. The Look for Fairies, I am keeping apart, Connect with your end, I can't even pronounce that word, and then Health Checkup. Those are cards that I do not vibe with, and I feel like, you know, this is still an Oracle deck, so yeah, if I don't vibe with it, I'm gonna keep it out of it. That is the Sacred Self-Care Oracle. And then, because I've been so drawn to self-worth, self-care readings, I also want to include the Believe in Your Own Magic Oracle deck. Because to me, this has self-worth messages. And I might also want to do a deck study with this. Because some I feel are really, really clear. And then some are a little less clear. And like to the meaning of the cards, the meaning of the message. But I love this artwork. I absolutely love it. And this is divided in witches, mermaids, and something. Witches, mermaids, and what? Now I want to know. Princesses. Okay. Yeah. And here we see all 3 of them. Yeah. So I like that. I like this deck a lot. And I want to do more with self-worth readings, self-worth messages in the month of April, because that is just really where my mind is at right now. So yeah, those are the decks. Let me put them all into frame. But those are the decks that I'm gonna be working with in the month of April. I keep forgetting what month we're in. Okay, so these are quite a few decks actually. I thought they would be less. Oh, I still have the Queen of the Moon Oracle. Well, put it there. These are quite a few decks, actually. Yeah, I think that once I've done the deck study of the Afro Avatar Tarot, I'm going to put that back in the basket so I can really get to using the other decks. But I really want to finish my deck study also because I'm going to do a video on how I do a deck study. And this is the one that I'm going to be using for personal use mostly. Yeah, okay. So let me know what decks you are going to be using for the month of April. What do you think of my choice of decks? I'm really excited about all of these for the upcoming month. Let me actually put them in the basket. So I have a basket here. Which one is the biggest here? This one. So while I do that, I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel if you enjoy, you know, tarot videos, because I do those all the time. Pick a card readings, tarot deck chats. That is pretty much all that I do here on the channel. You can also listen to my podcast, because I have a podcast. It's like a weekly forecast kind of podcast, where I pull cards and pull the charts to, oh, can I fit this? To give a weekly forecast. Okay, it's gonna be like this. Okay, it's pretty full basket, but that's gonna be, it's fine. Oh no, I still have to pull in my Oracle journal and my little book of spreads and my cheat sheet. You can also book a personal one-on-one tarot reading with me through the link in the description box below. I would love to work together with you. And for now, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.